Some people wish a happy secular New Year coming up, but I don't do that. So, but be it as it may. So I just want to continue our discussion of Hanukkah. First of all, I have to correct something. I can't believe I misstated a date because I gave the proper date at least 5 other places, but this year had the misfortune for me to be off by 100 years, which is beyond the margin of error. The Hanukkah story, the Hanukkah miracle, was the year 165 before the Common Era. I had said 265. I don't know how I said that. That is totally incorrect. Meaning to say, the Yavanim, under Antiochus IV, Antiochus Epiphanes, entered the Beis Hamikdash and desecrated it in the year 168 before the Common Era. And 3 years later, Miyom Liyom, the Chashmonaim, the Maccabees, were able to enter the Beis Hamikdash, purify it, and found the jar of oil. So just to be sure, it's 168 to 165, not 268. Okay, again. Okay, so I made a mistake in some share. I don't know which one. I don't know because 1 or 2 people pointed it out to me, and I'm aware that that's a mistake. So this share was okay. Okay, great. Okay, I got to retrace someplace. Some people are belaboring. They're laboring under 100-year discrepancy. Okay, thank you, Baruch Hashem. Okay, huh? This is a second share. Okay, alrighty. Now, you'll remember though that the one thing that we left off with was that in the earliest sources that discuss the Hanukkah story, the book of Maccabees and the like, both Maccabees 1 and Maccabees 2, Hanukkah, the 8 days of Hanukkah are not connected to the miracle of the oil. Either the 8 days of Hanukkah are the 8 days of the dedication of the Beis Hamikdash, modeled after Moshe Rabbeinu's dedication of the Mishkan, or in Maccabees 2, the 8 days of Hanukkah were perceived as a makeup for the 8 days of Sukkot and Shmini Atzeret, which although halachically you can't make it up, but spiritually they wanted to make it up. So the Kavios, the establishment of the holiday of Hanukkah, was literally Chanukah Tabayit, the dedication of the Beit HaMikdash, and a makeup for Sukkot. But not only does the book of the Maccabees give a different reason for the holiday of Hanukkah, it doesn't even mention the miracle of the Pach Hashemet. Now, in fact, I want to point out that some Achronim actually say a very surprising thing. I'm not sure if I mentioned this or not, but in case I didn't, I'm going to mention it now. And that is, they actually say that the halacha that you light candles for Hanukkah was not part of the original observance of the holiday, and that didn't even become part of the observance till after the Churban Beis Hamikdash. Now, again, let's look at how many years here. The Hanukkah miracle happens in 165 BCE. Now, the Gemara in Shabbos clearly indicates that the holiday of Hanukkah, the Kvias of the Yom Tov, was 1 year later, meaning it wasn't that year, but L'Shana Acheret. The next year, they made it a holiday. So the holiday called Hanukkah, the 8-day holiday called Hanukkah, was established, let us say, in the year 164 BCE. And that holiday was designated as Yemei Hallel, days of Hallel. We say Hallel for 8 days. V'hoda'ah, and giving thanks, and that's the Al Hanisim prayer. It does not say Hadlakas Haneros. Now, the Beis HaMikdash, the second temple, was destroyed, let us say, in the year 70 of the Common Era. So from 164 BCE to 70 is well over 200 years. So it's very interesting to imagine that for 200 years, more than 200 years, the holiday of Hanukkah was celebrated without the lighting of a menorah. It's like having Rosh Hashanah without a shofar. By the way, Karaites do that, by the way. Karaites observe Rosh Hashanah without a shofar, but we're not Karaites. Which means we're so used to the notion that the menorah is the thing about Hanukkah. We have to realize that there are a number of Achronim, Rav Soloveitchik has an arichos on this, actually take the position that Hadlakat Hanerot was added later, And for 150 years, for over 200 years, the dominant celebration of Hanukkah was the Hallel and Hoda'ah over the Nitzachon, over the Yevanim, and celebrating the dedication of the Beis Hamikdash. That is why, very simply, in the Al Nisim prayer, which is very old, the Al Nisim is right at the time of the victory of the Chashmonaim. There is no mention of the Pach Hashemen, and there is no mention of any miracle about the oil. The only thing that is described in the Al Nisim prayer is the victory over the Yevanim, but of course it's not described as a political victory. It is described as a victory for the Torah over forces that tried to destroy it. Yeah.
Mentions it's called the Festival of Lights.
But
yeah. He has no reason why it's called the Festival of Lights.
That's exactly correct. That is exactly correct. The Josephus. Yeah. Yes, but look at the reason Josephus himself gives. He makes up a reason. He says that it was customary when we celebrated military victories to have torches and the like. But it's 100% correct. He does not refer to Hadlokas, HaMenorah, or the Nace of the Pach Hashemen. So once again, I want to emphasize, as Ma'aminim, we of course believe there was such a miracle. God forbid, we're not denying the existence of that miracle, but that was not the origin of the holiday of Hanukkah. And indeed, some say, not everybody says, some say that even the mitzvah of Hadlakas Neros was something added to Hanukkah later. So we could almost say that Hanukkah had version 1 and version 2.
How do you explain
Yeah. So that's absolutely okay. So I know that some people want to fetch into it, they want to squeeze into it a reference to a miracle, but there is no language of miracle whatsoever there. That is simply referring to the idea that we were able to, as we regained access to the temple, we could once again light the menorah and serve Hashem. Meaning, it's referring to the general mitzvah of lighting the menorah, not the miraculous 8 days. Of course, there's another question you could ask. And that is, it says they lit Neros in your courtyards. Now, the courtyard of the temple was called the Azara. The temple building was called the Heichal. The menorah is not located in the Azara. The menorah is located in the Heichal. So how can you say Hidliku Neros b'chatzros kachecha? They did not light Neros in the courtyard. They lit Neros in the Heichal. Again, whether it's a miracle or not, that's not even relevant. But whatever they did with the menorah, they did it in the Heichal. So actually, according to that, some Meforshim explain even more than this, that it's not even a reference to the mitzvah of menorah. It just means festival, torches, lights, like Simchat Beis HaShoeva and Sukkot, right? They used to light all sorts of torches in the courtyards.
Does the oil have to be pure for the temple?
The oil has to be pure, sure. Well. Okay, let me put it this way. This is a famous. Okay, actually, I'm going to talk about this, but this is a very, very famous question. Normally, service in the Beis Hamikdash, the Kohanim have to be pure, not in contact with the dead, and the objects have to be pure, whether it's the kalim, whether it's the oil, whether it's the ketoret. Normally, it has to. Huh? Well, it becomes pure if it doesn't become impure. Meaning to say, everything is pure until it comes in contact with the dead, or whatever. Meaning, tahar is the natural state of things until they become tameh. Now, the thing is, certain things, when they become tameh, can become pure. If a person becomes tameh, there's the ritual of para aduma and mikvah. If utensils become tameh, it's the same thing. If food items become tameh, there's actually no way they can ever become Torah. Now, there is a very famous question, and that is that although we do have these laws of Tumah and Tara, there's a special dispensation for what are called communal offerings, meaning things that are brought on behalf of the tzibor. And this is called Tumah. The laws of impurity, hutra, becomes permissible for a korban tzibor. So, for example, if I want to bring a private korban and my dead animal, because live animals don't become tamei, but the meat of my korban got tamei, or the blood got tamei, it cannot be sacrificed. But if it's the korban tamid or the korban musaf, it can, because of tuma, hutra, betzibor. So the question that the Rishonim ask is, they only had enough oil to light for only tahor oil to light for one day, and meaning they had plenty of oil, but most of the oil was tamei. So Hashem made a miracle that the oil would burn for 8 days. Why did they even need that miracle? Let's imagine that the tar oil got used up and there was no other oil other than tamei oil because it would take 8 days to get pure oil. What is the halacha? The halacha is you light tamei oil because hadlakas menorah is a korban tzibor, it's communal offering, and tuma hutra b'tzibor. So, in point of fact, that miracle of Hanukkah was actually superfluous. The Chidushei Arim actually says that Hashem wanted us to be able to do mitzvos in the most beautiful way possible. Therefore, he gave us a miracle so we could go beyond the letter of the law, even though the letter of the law would have permitted Shemen Tameh. This is the Chidushei Arim. Actually, this actually leads into the next thing I want to mention. So we did discuss the issue of when was Hadlakas Haneros added to Hanukkah, but at some point it was added for sure. And the Brisa in Masechah Shabbos tells us that there are 3 levels of fulfilling the mitzvah. 3 levels. There is basic, there is mahadrin, those who want to do the mitzvah in a more beautiful way. There's mahadrin min ha-mahadrin, the most beautiful of the beautiful. Right? It sounds like kashrus in Israel. There's rabbanut and there's mahadrin. Now there's mahuderet, mahadrin, mina mahadrin, like all of these different levels. So, what is basic? So the Gemara says, it's a brisa. The Gemara says, ner echad ishu beso, one candle for everybody in my house every day of Hanukkah. Meaning, if I have 10 people in my house, I light one candle night 1. That's it. And even on night 8, one candle. One candle a night is perfectly fine. You are yotze. You can make the brachos. You are yotze. Now, I've never heard of a person. I mean, it's funny. People light Hanukkah candles, even if they're not religious at all, even if they don't keep Shabbos. But Hanukkah candles, they want to do. They don't realize that not only are they doing the mitzvah, they're doing the mitzvah in the most beautiful way. By Hanukkah, everybody's a tzaddik. Mahadrin mina mahadrin. Okay. So level 1 is one candle. Level 2 is still going to be different. Mahadrin is one candle for each member of your household. So if I have 10 people, night 1, still not what we do, 10 candles. And night 8, 10 candles. Each member of your household has an heir. But then, Mahadrin, Min HaMahadrin, the highest of the highest, the best of the best, is you indicate the number of days. And this is the famous Machlokas, Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, where Beis Shammai says you start with 8 and you go down. And the reason for that would be Beis Shammai is looking at Sukkot is one idea, and the other idea is he's looking at the koach Hashem put into the oil, which you didn't know until retrospect. Meaning, day 1, there was 8 days of burning power in that oil. Day 2, there's only 7 days. Right? Beis Shammai is looking at the koach in the shemen. Beis Hillel is looking at what you realize. Right? Day 1, I see 1 day. Right? Okay. Now, obviously, as is always the case, almost always the case, in a machlokas Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, we follow Beis Hillel. And in point of fact, that is why everybody does Mahadrin, Mina Mahadrin. But you understand, keep in mind, the machlokas Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel is not about the basic mitzvah. It's Mahadrin, Min HaMahadrin. By the way, this is a pilpul. I wouldn't call this a pshat answer by any means, but some want to use this idea to explain yet another answer. I told you there are 1,000 answers to Rav Yosef Karo's question. That is, if there was enough oil to burn for one day, why is Hanukkah 8 days? There's only 7 days of miraculous burning. Hanukkah ought to be 7 days. I told you there are 1,000 answers. Well, here is one of the 1,000 answers. And that is, again, it's totally pilpul. If you were to do 7, meaning Hanukkah would start on day 2, then on the 4th night, Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel would be the same. Because according to Shammai, it would be 7, 6, 5, 4. According to Hillel, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. And Chazal saw it as very important to always show that we follow Beis Hillel. So they had to create a system where Beis Hillel and Beit Shammai would always have different views. So when you start with 8, 8, 7, 6, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. Therefore, so they want to say there's a remez in the very word Chanukah. Chanukah could be read as an acronym. Ches Nerot, meaning we light for 8 days. V'halacha kebeis Hillel, because the halacha needs to be like Beis Hillel. Again, that's obviously a drush, but that is one of the answers um, that is given. But this is a machlokas on the level of mahadrin mina mahadrin. So now, let me just share with you. Well, before I mention Rabbi Kibeg, I want to mention an interesting thing that there's a huge machlokas Tosfos and the Rambam about the relationship between highest level. Level 3 is the highest level, and level 2. Remember, level 2 was a nair for everybody in the bayit. Level 3 is minyan hayamim. You want to designate the days, and we'll go like Beis Hillel in ascending order. Tosfos says in Masechah Shabbos the following idea: if you want to do the highest level of minyan hayamim, corresponding to the days, you don't do the middle level of every person lighting. And the reason is because if the highest level is that Persume Nisa, people should walk by and see how many days of Hanukkah, when you have 50 candles in the window or 50 candles outside, people are going to not know the count. Therefore, if you're going to do Mahadrin, Mina Mahadrin, Tosfa says, you don't do the middle level of candles for everybody. You just have the Balabayit lighting one menorah. This is what Tosfos says in Masechah Shabbos, and Rav Yosef Karo in the Shulchan Aruch paskins like this Tosfos, and that is why it is the minhag of most Svardim, not all Svardim, because Moroccans are sometimes holdouts, but most Svardim follow Rav Yosef Karo, that only the Balabayas lights the menorah, because if you're doing Mahadrin, Mina Mahadrin, you don't do the middle level. Now, the Rambam says differently. The Rambam actually says that even if you're doing Mahadrin, Mina Mahadrin, you also have a menorah for everybody, but he says it differently. He says the Balabayas, we don't do this, the Balabayas lights the number of menorahs equal to his family. Now, the Ramah, which is the posek for Ashkenazim, says the following: our minhag is that we light according to the days, which is, of course, Mahadrin, Mina Mahadrin, but each person lights their own menorah. Now, within the Ramah, there are a lot of side machlokim. Meaning, if the Ramah says everybody lights their own menorah, who is everybody? What about husband and wife? So most poskim say that even like the Ramah, that husband and wife, that everybody lights, husband and wife are treated as one based on the principle of Ishto Kegufo, and that's the majority view in the Ramah. There is a minority view that says husband and wife are two people. They should light. Now, we similarly have a machlokas even about unmarried daughters, although it's a different machlokas. Some say unmarried daughters living at home should 100% light separate menorahs, for Ashkenazim we're talking about, just as sons who are living at home light their own menorahs. Others say that the Chassam Sofer paskins that women do not light. Of course, a woman living by herself absolutely lights a menorah, but a woman living at home with her parents would not light a menorah. So these are, I want to again, these are side machloksim within the view of the Ramah. Like Rav Yosef Karo, there'd be no issue because you only light one menorah anyway. Within the Ramah, we have a machlokas about a wife, and we have another machlokas about unmarried daughters. Now, when you learn the Shulchan Aruch, yeah.
You said something about the lights were not put into, the menorah wasn't put into the Hanukkah until the year 70.
Till after the year 70, there is such a view, yeah. After the
So
yeah.
miracle, but then the miracle of the lights. When was that?
Oh no. The miracle of the lights happens the first Hanukkah for sure. But I mean, we didn't commemorate that miracle until after the Churban Beis Hamikdash. Yeah. I'm not moving the miracle. The miracle happened 165 BCE. But I just mean to say it was not part of the annual ritual of Hanukkah till after the Churban Beis Hamikdash. Yeah.
In India, and they told us that the Menashe, who were exiled before the miracle of Hanukkah, did not know about Hanukkah.
Wow.
Only when the world opened up, they learned, but in the beginning, they did not.
They didn't know anything about it. Wow, amazing. Yeah, the Bnei Menashe that again their Jewish status is debatable, but the Jews of India, the indigenous Jews of India, were exiled to that part of the world before the Hanukkah story, well before the Churban of the Bayis Sheni, and they literally had not heard about Hanukkah. Only when the world opened up a little bit more did they even hear of it. Meaning to say, communication in the ancient world that was so distant, they literally did not know that there was such an event that needed to be celebrated. That is very interesting. Yeah.
Was in Hodu
Yeah.
a couple of years ago, and she said the community there in the Bnei Menashe was so poor that they only did what you said. They lit one candle.
Wow, that's interesting. That's
So
interesting.
all the children had a candle.
That's fascinating, and the truth is, it's 100% kosher. It's 100% kosher. In fact, there's all sorts of debates. By the way, let's assume that you're traveling with friends, and you're a conscientious traveler, so you brought enough Hanukkah candles for Hanukkah, and they forgot to bring Hanukkah candles. So there's an interesting shaila here. Is it better for me to divvy it up so at least all of us fulfill the mitzvah with one candle? Or do I say, hey, Mahadrin min Mahadrin, I want to do the mitzvah Mahadrin min Mahadrin, so I don't have to sacrifice Hidur to enable you to do the basic mitzvah? There's a machlokas exactly how you figure that out. Okay, so be it as it may, I want to point out the following. When you learn the Shulchan Aruch, and you want to know what is Rav Yosef Karo's source, where did the Shulchan Aruch get his halacha? So you may know, again, if you learn Mishnah Berurah, the Shulchan Aruch, you'll see there's a little letter, like a footnote, a little aleph or a beis next to every halacha, and then you go to the side, and there's a commentary called Ber Hagola. Actually, it was a grandfather of the Vilna Gaon, and the Ber Hagola footnotes every halacha in the Shulchan Aruch. It'll tell you from the Gemara, from the Rambam, from the Rif, whatever it is. Meaning, that's how you get your footnoting for the Shulchan Aruch. For the Ramah, it's a little different. For some reason, the Ber Hagola did not annotate Ramah, but in Ramah, you just see parentheses. You're reading the Ramah, and a din will be stated, and there'll be a parenthesis that will say Gemara, Rambam, Torah, and the like. Now, it's important to know, this is a bit of bibliographical knowledge, that the parentheses that appear in the Ramah are not the Ramah's own sourcing. Some anonymous editor, who was a Talmud Chacham, to be sure, simply kind of guessed or reconstructed what the Ramah's sources are. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because sometimes the parentheses are incorrect. Sometimes the indicated source of the Ramah is, in fact, not the source of the Ramah, and Hilchos Chanukah is a very good example. Rav Yosef Karo, as I indicated, says only one menorah is lit. The Ramah says every single person, again, not discussing wives or daughters, but every single person should light their own menorah. The parenthesis says Rambam. So when you read the Ramah, you get the impression that the source of the Ramah is the Rambam. But that's not true, because the Rambam does not say what the Ramah says. The Rambam says the Baal Habayis lights. So if I have 5 children, I'll light 6 menorahs for myself, my wife, and my 5 children. But that's not what the Ramah says. The Ramah actually says every single person, again, not discussing the issue of wives and daughters, lights. So the source of the Ramah is in fact not the Rambam. And in fact, the Ramah himself wrote a commentary on the TORAH called the Darchei Moshe. And the Ramah himself says that he's actually following Tosfos' Shita, because here's what he says. What does Tosfos argue? Tosfos says that if you're doing Mahadrin, Mina Mahadrin, you shouldn't have everybody light because of confusion. So says the Darchei Moshe, that only applied in Talmudic times when there were no Chanukiahs, meaning the way a typical candle was an earthenware, was a cup that had a wick and oil. So when you put 10 cups outside or 20 cups outside or 30 cups outside, somebody who walks by, they're not going to know how many days it is. But when you have separate menorahs, there's not going to be that confusion. Meaning, if there are 10 menorahs in the window or outside, whatever it is, I'm able to know what day it is because each menorah is separate. So the Ramah is not following the Rambam. The Ramah is extrapolating from Tosfos that Tosfos' concern was only a concern in the time of the Talmud. It would not be a concern when you have separate Chanukiot. But be it as it may, this is the source of the Ashkenazic minhag that everybody lights with the bracha even, as opposed to most Sfardim, not all Sfardim, in which only the Balabayit lights, and not the Rambam's view that the Balabayit lights many menorahs. That's the Rambam's view, which is kind of an unusual view, but rather the Balabayit lights one menorah. Now, the truth is, Rav Ovadia writes that the Chumrah of the Mechaber, and this is an extrapolation, doesn't only mean that if the sons are with their father, only the father lights. His opinion is, even if the sons are in yeshiva, the sons aren't even home, they don't light where they are, only the father lights. Now that's an extrapolation, because the truth is, if Rav Yosef Karo's concern is all the menorahs are going to mix up the count, that shouldn't apply where the kids are not at home. And yet Rav Ovadia says the Mechaber Shita is only the Balabayas lights, even when the children are not home, until they're independent, till they have their own apartments or whatever. Yeah.
I don't understand why women are not obligated, even if they're at home, because it's supposed to be partially a women's mitzvah, because women participated in the miracle. So why would women
Yeah.
be excluded from having a pleasure only with their unmarried daughters?
Yeah, yes, it's a good question. Again, let me emphasize the obvious. Women are certainly obligated in Nerot Hanukkah, so a woman who lives alone absolutely must light Neros of Hanukkah. The issue only is if she is married or an unmarried daughter living at home, should she light her own menorah like Minhag Ashkenaz? So vis-a-vis the wife, we have the logic of Ishto Kegufo, they're considered to be one person. Vis-a-vis the daughters, you don't have that logic, right? So the normal logic would indicate exactly as you're saying that the unmarried daughters should light separately. The Chasam Sofer gives the following explanation, which is a bit of a dochik explanation. He says like this. He says the original minhag of Hanukkah, and of course in Yerushalayim this is the minhag to this day, is that people would light outside next to their door. Later in the Golah, it became customary to light inside. But when the Hadlakah was outside, So the Chassam Sofer suggests it may have been a lack of tzniut issues for the women to go outside in public thoroughfares and light, and therefore the minhag was that they would be yotze with the balabayas. So his chiddush is, even when the mitzvah in the Golah got transformed and the menorah was moved inside, the original structure of the custom remained. Again, it's a bit of a dochic reason in reality, and there is certainly halachic support for unmarried girls lighting separate menorahs. I don't mean to say, again, that these are different minhagim, but an unmarried woman, even in her parents' house, certainly yeshla alma lismoch. She has what to rely upon in lighting menorah. In fact, some say even a wife. That's fewer say that, but some say even the wife lights her own menorah. So now I want to mention a very fascinating tshuva of the great Rabbi Akiva Eger. Rabbi Akiva Eger deals with the following problem. We know that a bracha over a mitzvah always has to be said before you do the mitzvah. Meaning, you got to make the bracha on, well, actually, Ner Shabbos is an interesting issue, but let's say Ner Hanukkah, you make the bracha of the Hadlik Ner, and then you light the candles. Maybe you light the Shamish first, those are different customs, but certainly the actual mitzvot of Hanukkah, you don't light till after the bracha. A man does not make a bracha on the talit, or he makes it before he puts on the talit, or before he envelops himself, before I put on tefillin. I make the bracha on searching for chametz. Before I search for chametz, I make the bracha on Megillah. Before I read Megillah. This is a fundamental principle called over liasiyasan. The word over is a rabbinic term, lifnei. You must make the bracha before you do the mitzvah. After you've done the mitzvah without the bracha, maybe you're yotzei the mitzvah, but you cannot make the bracha. Now, one exception to this, actually there are a few exceptions to this. One exception is actually the issue of Ner Shabbos. As you know, many have the custom, maybe most women have the custom, that when they light the Shabbos candles, they first light and then they wave and cover their eyes, then make the bracha. The reason why Ner Shabbat has a particular problem is that in the normal course of events, a woman is mekabelet Shabbos when she benches for the licht, when she benches the candle lighting. So if once she says the bracha and she's accepted Shabbos, unless she made a condition, she would not be allowed to light the candle or blow it out. So therefore, the concept is she has to light it first, but cover her eyes so she doesn't benefit from the light until after the bracha. So that way, she is making the bracha before she benefits from the light, but she has to light it first. Now, it is brought down that if a man is lighting Shabbos candles, either for his wife or the man is not married and he's lighting Shabbos candles, he actually should make the bracha and then light, because for men, the minhag was they were not makabel Shabbos with a lich benching. This is a chiddush, by the way, that is brought down in the name of a woman. In the Hakdama to the Sefer Prisha, which is a big commentary on the Torah, written by Rabbi Yoshua Falak. So the commentary was published after he died, and there's an introduction by his sons. So after the sons talk about how great a Talmid Chacham their father was, they then talk about how learned their mother was. And they said that she was a very, very learned woman. She used to paskin many shilas and hilchos nida, etc. And then they mention, and she was machadesh, the following halacha, that when men light neros of Shabbos, they should make the bracha first and then do it. Now, another example of over le'asiyasan is, I'm sorry, where you don't apply the rule of le'asiyasan, is when a non-Jew is in the process of converting and they go to the mikveh. So there is a mitzvah on a ger to be tovel, but until the gerus is finished, he's not Jewish. So the ger has to go to the mikveh first, and then when he comes up, he makes the bracha al hatfila, and then goes down. And as you know, there are different minhagim for nida. That's a machlokas Ashkenazim and Sephardim. Sephardi women, when a woman is a nida, the woman makes the bracha before she goes into the mikveh. Before she goes into the mikveh, Ashkenazi women apply the same paradigm as the tefillah of ger, in which the woman goes under once, and then she, takes her arms, folds it to kind of create like a belt or a gartel, separating the head from the breasts, and makes the bracha then. So there are some exceptions. Ner Shabbos and mikveh might be exceptions to the overly asiyasan principle, but other than that, you got to make a bracha before the mitzvah. Now, what that would mean is the following. That would mean if I lit Hanukkah candles and I forgot somehow to make the bracha, I wouldn't be allowed to make the bracha after I already lit. And by the way, and it wouldn't even help to blow the candles out and start again, because as soon as you lit them, you were yotzei the mitzvah. So blowing them out and lighting again will not allow me to make a bracha on that either. Okay, so here is Rabbi Kiveger's chiddush. What if, let's say tonight, for example, is the 7th night of Hanukkah. What if I lit candle 1, or even 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I remember before I lit the last candle that I didn't make the bracha? If I would have lit the last candle, I've lost the bracha for sure. Right? That's for sure, because I've done the whole mitzvah. But what if I didn't yet light the last candle? Would I be able to make the bracha? So here is the shaila. Since Me'ikar Hadin, I was Yotze with the first candle that I lit. And the extra candles are only because of Mahadrin, Mina Mahadrin. So the question is, if I haven't yet completed my Hidor mitzvah, is that enough of not yet finishing the mitzvah that I can make the bracha? Meaning to say, the rule is you got to make the bracha before you've done the mitzvah. But what if I've done the mitzvah, but I haven't yet completed the Hidor mitzvah? Would that be enough to permit me to make a bracha? So Rabbi Kiveger actually brings 2 different opinions. Some say that since Mahadrim and a Mahadrin is the way you're doing the mitzvah, so until you've lit candle number 7, you haven't finished the Hidor of Mahadrim and Mahadrin. That will allow you to make the bracha of both Lahadlik and Shas and Nisim. And Yesh Omrim, no, it's only a Hidor. The basic mitzvah you've done with candle number 1. So once I don't mean the Shamish, but once you lit candle number 1, you have done your mitzvah. Everything else is frosting on the cake. You cannot make a bracha on the frosting. You can only make a bracha on the cake. So this is a machlokas. Rabbi Kiveger concludes, based on the normal principles of halacha, whenever there is a safek, whether you can make a bracha or not make a bracha, because of the prohibition of a blessing in vain, if you can't make a bracha, so the normal rule is safek brachot. Whenever there is a doubt whether you're obligated to make a bracha, we always err on the side of not making the bracha, and therefore halachically, once you lit candle 1, you have forfeited the ability to make the brachos, even though you haven't finished the mahadrin till 7. And again, I want to repeat, and blowing out candle 1 is not going to help you, because even if I blow it out, I was yotze with the maisa of lighting it. Therefore, okay. Now, Rebbe Kiveger, though, then adds the following interesting idea. He wants to differentiate between the first mitzvah, lahadlik ner shel Chanukah, and the second bracha, sha'asa nisim lavotenu. And here is what he says. There's a fascinating Gemara in Shabbos, Masechah Shabbos, that says, when you light Hanukkah candles, or you're participating in a lighting, so the first night of Hanukkah, there are, of course, 3 brachos. lahadlik ner shel Chanukah, she'asa nisim lavosenu, and shehachiyanu. Every other night of Hanukkah, there are two brachos. The first two, lahadlik ner shel Chanukah, and she'asa nisim. Now, this is when you're lighting or you're participating in a lighting. But the Gemara says the following. Let's say that for whatever reason you're not lighting, you don't have the candles, you're in a place where you can't be yotzei with anybody, but you walk by in the street and you see somebody else's menorah. You're not yotzei with that, you don't live there, but you're called a roeh near Chanukah. I see a Hanukkah candle. So here the Gemara says the following. You can't make the bracha lahadlik ner shel Chanukah because you're not fulfilling the mitzvah of lighting Chanukah candles. But you can still look at somebody else's Hanukkah candle and you could say, Sha'asa Nisim. I look at this candle, I remember that God did miracles. And on the first night, you could even say Shechiyanu. Now, this rule of Raya, which is quite amazing, does not apply if you're planning on lighting later, or even if you're not going to light later, but somebody is lighting for you in your house. So if let's say I'm coming home late from work, and by the time I'm coming home, I see plenty of menorahs. I do not make the bracha of Raya because I'm planning on lighting when I get home. But in a situation where I'm not going to be lighting later at home, and two conditions, and nobody, like my wife, is lighting for me, then there actually is a bracha called Birkas Haroah. I don't make lahadlik, but I make a shas and nisim. And if it's the first night of Hanukkah, I make shachiyanu. Okay, Birkas Haraya. So here's Rabbi Kiveger's chiddush. Rabbi Kiveger's chiddush is the same way. If I see somebody else's candles, I can make a Birkas Haroah. If I see my own candles, if I didn't make a bracha on the lighting, I can still make a bracha for seeing my candles. For Sumei Nisa. Therefore, says Rabbi Kiveger the following. It's true that once you lit even one candle, you would no longer be able to make the bracha lahadlik ner shel Chanukah because you've done the mitzvah of hadlaka. But he says, even if you lit all 7 candles or all 8 candles last night, if you didn't make a bracha, you could still make the bracha sha'asa nisim lavosenu. Rabbi Kiveger says, because the same way you could make a bracha at seeing somebody else's menorah, Birkas Haroah, you can make a Birkas Haroah on your menorah too. So normally you don't do that because normally you want to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, meaning I want to make my brachos as part of the mitzvah of lighting. That's why I do it before. And that's also a bracha of thanking Hashem for the miracle. But if I forgot to make the bracha before I did the mitzvah, I could use the Shas Nisim and the first night. Yeah, the first night was only 1 candle, but it's the same issue. Meaning, if I lit 1 candle the first night and I forgot to make the bracha, so I can't make lahadlik. But I'm a raya of that candle, so I could make Shas Nisim and I could even make Shechiyanu on the 1 candle. Yeah.
So that would work for people who are in the hospital or in like the nursing home where they can't really have fire, but if someone brings like a menorah, they can say the roeh.
Okay, so this is a little tricky. In fact, some want to say, I don't want to get too political. One of the very controversial. This will be a long answer to your question. One of the controversial issues of Chabad, Chabad is very big into public menorah lighting, and that is a wonderful. It is a wonderful thing. I'm certainly not against public menorah lighting, but the big halachic issue is: are you allowed to make a bracha on a public menorah lighting? Because once again, the menorah normally, the only people who are yosei with menorah is if it's lit where you live, right? So I can't be yosei with a menorah in the street. So one of the arguments is, well, okay, even if nobody's yosei with hadlaka, they could make the bracha on seeing a ner Chanukah. So the guy who's lighting is motzi the tzibor in the bracha sha'asa nisim and shechayanu, but even that is not going to justify the first bracha. Okay, so you're still not there 100%. So, but the counter argument is, and this will be the answer to the hospital, that birchas haraya can be made only if the Hanukkah ner is a kosher hadlaka for somebody. Meaning, you can't make a birchas haraya if I just see a menorah in the street. It has to be a menorah in somebody's home. So whether the hospital menorah would count would be a little bit of a question, but there is a possibility. Yeah, for sure, for sure.
But
Yeah.
many people sometimes they have jobs, and every night they have to come home, at 8 o'clock or something like that.
Yeah.
And the wife might be, wants to wait for him, and some of it, and their grandchildren are coming that time. What can't they do another lighting of the candles?
Well, you can. Well, okay. I mean, so here's the thing. I mean, you can do another lighting of the candles, and because like the Ram, at least if you're Ashkenazi, because like the Ramah, there is a heater for every member to light. Now the question is, if the father already lit or the wife already lit, would the father be able to make the brachos over again? But pashtus, that would be possible because once again, if you're an Ashkenazi, since there's a mitzvah on every member to light, so the brachos could be made for that, and I could be motzi my children in the hadlaka, or they can make their own brachos. Yeah. Who? Yeah.
Do you need kavanah for the lighting? Because according to what you said, if you in those days lit your house with candles and you went round and you lit a candle which you had in the window to light up the house, you'd be not to the mitzvah of lighting.
No, yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, I think the answer would be that you do need kavanah. In other words, the general candles in your house would not be valid for Nerativ Chanukah. There has to be a specific kavanah for that. So this is Rabbi Kiveger's very interesting chiddush. Once again, la halacha lemaisa, he actually paskins that even if I lit all of my Hanukkah candles without a bracha, I would still be permitted to say Sha'as Sanisim, and on the first night, the one candle Shechiyanu, because I could make a Birchas Haroah on my own near Hanukkah, even though I could not make a Birchas Mitzvah. So Rabbi Kiveger's tshuva is both a chumrah and a kula. His chumrah is that you lose lahadlik even if you only lit one candle and you didn't complete the others. You've lost the hadlik. But the Birchas Haraya you maintain even if you lit everything. Right? Those are the two pratim of Rebbe Kiver. Let me just end with a short little story. There was a great tzaddik in Lithuania who was actually the inspiration of the Chafetz Chaim. The Chafetz Chaim tried to always emulate this person. This was Rav Nachum Kaplan. He was called Rav Nachumka. Even though he was a great Talmud Chacham, he only wanted to be a shamish in a show. He refused to take any job over and above a shamish in a little shtibel. And when the Chavetz Chaim was a young man, he used to hang around Rav Nachum a lot. He would learn from a lot of his ways. And he noticed it was already Shkia, it was time to light Hanukkah candles. And especially in Lita, the Vilna Gaon was very makbid that you have to light within a half an hour of sunset. Otherwise, the Vilna Gaon actually said you don't light at all. I mean, we don't pass him like that, but he was very strict. And he noticed Rav Nachum was procrastinating and everything. So finally, the Chavetz Chaim says to Rav Nachum, and the Rebbe, it's time to light. So Rav Nachum said, well, my wife isn't here yet. She's working. So the Chavetz Chaim said, okay, but you light and you be motzi her, right? So the Chavetz Chaim said, I'm sorry, Rav Nachum said the following. The Gemara in Masechah Shabbos says, what if you only have enough money for Ner Shabbos candles, or Hanukkah candles? You can't buy both. Which do you buy? So the Gemara in Shabbos says, Ner Shabbat has preference over Nerot Hanukkah, because Ner Shabbat you can eat your meal, and that's conducive to Shalom Bayis. So as opposed to Hanukkah candles, we are not allowed to eat by the Hanukkah candles, unless there's a Shabbos. So says Rav Nachum, you see that the value of Shalom Bayis is so significant that even if you're not going to do Hanukkah candles at all, Shalom Bayit is more important. So Rav Nachman said, uh, if Shalom Bayit can even take away the whole mitzvah of Hanukkah, Kal v'chomer, it would be a justification to delay it, and my wife gets great pleasure in being with me when I light the Shabbos, the Hanukkah candles. Therefore, it is mutter and proper for me to wait until she gets home, even if it's after the optimal Zman for lighting. Now, again, we say you don't prove anything from stories, but this is a story that does indicate how important the Shalom Bayit is. Yeah.
If you have a lot of people lighting, and yet there are some standing on the side who don't have their own menorahs, including the wife, what can you say along in terms of communal bracha saying? I've always wondered about that, and I've heard people saying the whole bracha together. Is that allowed?
No, it would not be proper to say the bracha. Again, even the bracha saraya is not said when you're there b'shas hadlaka itself. So basically, those who are not lighting their own menorah will be yotze with the brachos of the person, and then of course they say aneres halalu. Everybody could say, and ma'osur. Everybody could say. By the way, one thing about aneres halalu, this is a bit of a conundrum. Go back and count the words. The Marami Rittenberg brings that Haneres Halalu has exactly 36 words because there are 36 Neros that you light during Hanukkah, and therefore this was a prayer that contains bidiyuk, 36 words. So my homework assignment for you is go back and count how many words in Neres Halalu. You will get between 49 and 47. So there's a big number of extra words there. All right, so one answer is 4 words we can eliminate right off the bat. Haneros Halalu Anu Madlikin. So many say the 36 start after that, meaning the Neros that we're lighting are represented by these 36 words. All right, so subtract 4. That's good. But even when you subtract 4, you're still left with 45 words. So the truth of the matter is, Haneres Halalu, huh? So some have which will allow you to go up to 44. Yeah, some do 44, but the Marami Ritmer is mashma that we don't count the shamash. So if you actually look into this, you will actually see that Haneres Halalu has so many different nuschos. People are trying to fool around to get you down to 36. It's quite an arduous task because the standard nusach does not correspond to the 36.